it sounds almost ungrateful because for so many, they look at this opportunity and they think that your life is a perpetual vacation. And you're not vacationing and traveling abroad, you're living.
Yeah.
And the same reason why people have to have a reason to get out of bed, no matter what city you live in. And I'm sure your city is great and full of great things that you can go do and explore. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're just doing TikToks all day long and on the exploration of your city all day long. And like, that's life.
Welcome to the Empowered Expat Woman Show, the place to celebrate your courage, inspire you to dream and play bigger, and support you in creating a truly fulfilled life across borders. I'm your host, Camila Quintana, and I believe your future is too important to get lost in translation. So, are you ready to make the most of your life abroad? Then let's get started. Hello, my empowered expat women. Welcome back to the show. I am so excited because I have a super special guest today who's, by the way, the first woman to come back a second time. So there's a reason for that, and you'll find out in a minute. Also to say, I completely lost my voice over the weekend. I'm just slowly getting it back. So it probably sounds a bit funny, but that's okay because like I insinuated, my guest today will do all of the talking. She has so much to share. So let's dive right in. Welcome, Juanita. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it is. So good to see you. You look radiant. And well, Juanita was recently on the show. Well, it was like a year ago. So I'll link the episode. You can check that out as well. But for those of you who aren't so familiar with her or who would like to have an updated bio, let me just introduce her real quick, officially. So Juanita Brown Ingram is the creator, executive producer, and supervising editor of her own reality show, the Expats International Ingrams, which is a family-friendly, Black-led and produced unscripted docu-series that chronicles the international adventures of Black Americans living, working, and thriving abroad. She is also the reigning Mrs. Universe. She'll tell us all about that. In addition to being, and listen up for this, an award-winning attorney, an author, actress, filmmaker, fashion philanthropist. She has been incredibly active in promoting girls and women's empowerment, especially for women of color. And Juanita is originally from Tennessee and currently lives in Singapore with her husband and 2 children. So Juanita, welcome again. You have done such incredible things over the past year. Where do we start? Let's start with the show, because I know the new season came out on February 1st, right?
Yes.
So tell us all about that. What can we expect?
Yes, I'm so excited. The new season came out just in time for Black History Month, and it was also Black Expat Month. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. So we are celebrating just, I think it's so important. This is our second season, and season 1 did extremely well. And we're excited this season. My family and I led sort of the way in season 1, and it was about us moving from America to Taiwan at the time. In season 2, you'll see us in the middle of lockdowns move from Taiwan to Singapore. But this season, I have 12 other expats on the show, and I wanted to really showcase their journey, their experiences, who they are. We explore different topics this season, like dating abroad, which is something my husband and I could not chime in on because we've been married 18 plus years. So I'm like, I don't know what that's like. So, I really relied on other expats living abroad to just share their journey, their stories. It's about making friendships. It's about raising third culture kids. It's very family friendly, but we deal with some really heavy topics. And just a lifestyle show. There's never been one before about anybody living abroad. And I don't know why. Well, I kind of do from a production standpoint. It's kind of hard. But it is a lot of fun. It's out on Amazon Prime right now in the US and the UK. Hopefully we'll be going on to other platforms. And then eventually, once that exclusivity period ends, we'll be back on purposestreaming.com for everybody in the international space. So you can watch it anywhere. And I launched.
Sounds like I'll have to wait a little bit, unfortunately.
I mean, unless you have a US or UK Amazon account right now. But you can follow us on social media. We're dropping certain scenes and clips from the seasons and episodes that are really funny. It's a very funny show. I
Yeah.
like to make people laugh. My kids have a very dry sense of humor like me. And so, it's funny because sometimes things that happen are interesting and it's funny. And it can be very challenging. And we still deal with, in season one, we talked about trailing spouse identity and trailing spouse depression and just really overcoming that hurdle and finding your voice and my journey through that experience, and just being very transparent about it. Obviously, I had a purpose going into it this time, but it's still, it gets to you after a period of time, sometimes in terms of pivoting and going in a different direction. But I've been fortunate enough to really find my second wind, if you will, and pivot quite nicely. And so, yeah, we explore a host of different topics from, gosh, it's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
lot.
And I was just thinking, right, when you talked about pivoting and having like going through this moment of identity crisis, which is so common, especially in accompanying spouses, like you said, you are so multifaceted, right? So you have so many, what do you say, like horses that you bet on, or I don't, there's like a saying, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
English. And I was just wondering if that is a good strategy. I mean, I'm all for finding that one thing that gives you a lot of purpose so that what you set out to do becomes like, I must do that. But also,
yeah,
as an expat, we will encounter so many obstacles, right? And certain things are just not possible for us in a certain
right.
different country. So, would you say it's actually a good thing to kind of, don't put all of your what's the saying? Don't put all
Don't
of
put all of your eggs in one basket.
Okay,
I
this is
think that's,
English.
yeah, I think it's critical for you to do that. And then also as the accompanying spouse, because it can be very enticing, exciting, overwhelming. You've got a lot of things to sort through, a lot of things to plan out. You got house hunting. If you have children, you've got to get them settled. You have all of these things that will distract you in the outset of the process of making the move. And it doesn't matter whether you're moving for the first time or for the fifth time. Every time you pick up the move to another location, it's the same process of trying to settle in, and you've got all these logistical things. But I always advise women to take a day, if you can, to sit down and think about the kids are in school, your husband has a purpose and has gone on, and you're sitting in the house. What does your day look like? What does your life look like? And what does that mean for you? And to just sit down and think about what are you going to do to occupy your mind, your time, your mental health, your emotional health, your professional, every aspect of yourself. Sometimes we don't think about it. I didn't take stock of it my first move. When I moved to London, it was just so exciting. And you're thinking, yes, we're going to live abroad. This is going to be so great. And I didn't even really fully take stock of, oh my God, I worked this hard to have a law degree and now I'm about to walk away from it and I'm about to quit my job. And what does this mean a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? I think sometimes we do vision planning and vision boards, and we sit down and we think about it in terms of like, oh, I want to have my house organized, or I want to start Pilates, or, small things. But in the bigger scheme of things, what does your life look like in 9 months? And I would even start smaller, like 5 months, 9 months, 12 months. What does it look like 5 weeks after you settle and the kids are in school and your husband's at work and you're just sitting there and you've made no plans or preparation to network? You don't know what it is that you would like to do. You have absolutely no idea the different layers to yourself. I think you have to give yourself permission to be a layered individual. So oftentimes people, I am probably like, if layered individual was a person, I'm like in the dictionary smiling, like, hi,
I can
I get,
imagine that.
yeah, that I might be this really extreme, multifaceted person. Um, but I didn't get there without a lot of resistance, without a lot of opposition, both with my internal narrative and dialogue and external also, because so often you'll have a lot of accompanying spouses that have not thought through this. And the fact that you dare to say, you know what, I think I want to be fulfilled. shame, how dare you? But
Yeah.
sometimes other people have not taken the step to do that, they will project their disappointments onto you. It's kind of like misery loves company,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you'll get the conviction from others of, well, why don't you just be satisfied with being a life partner or being a housewife or whatever? And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose to do. But if that's not enough, there's nothing wrong with it not being enough.
Exactly.
And
Even
the
if you have
shame,
Yeah, even if you have a good expat package, I see that a lot, right? Where people are like, hey, you don't need to work. You don't need
yeah,
to worry about money. But that doesn't mean that you don't need a purpose, right? That you
that's
don't need
right.
this thing on your own that you can do that makes you get out of bed in the morning. And even though everyone's gone for the day, your husband, your children, you can go to sleep and think, wow, I really accomplished something today. That is so healthy, right? And whether that's a paid job or it's a project or it's a charity work, whatever it is, it's something
Yeah,
really meaningful, right? Yeah, I think it's,
something meaningful. Yeah, and
yeah,
something, I talked about this. I don't know if I've talked about this last time, but I talk about it often. I first moved to London. So we were in London, then Taiwan, and now Singapore. We first moved to London. I spent probably the first 4 to 6 weeks crying every day, sad, thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? It just kind of all hit me
yeah,
that I was alone, that I had taken a step away. I had this deep sinking feeling in my stomach, like, oh my God, what did I just do? I was in-house counsel at Rolls Royce. I had a very high prestigious legal job and I walked away from it. And I had legal colleagues ask me, so what are you doing? So what are you about to do now? And the notion of, oh, I'm just going to stay at home. They were like, so brilliant legal mind. And you're just, not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with it. It was the questions coupled with my own feeling of, I knew that there was more that I was supposed to do, could do, but was not doing.
yeah,
And then wasn't clear on what to do because I hadn't sat down long enough to think about, well, what does success look like for me now? What
right.
does fulfillment, more so fulfillment, what does purpose look like? What am I meant to do? What all can I do in addition to what I've always done?
Yeah,
And I knew deep down inside all that I could do. I just didn't give myself permission to do it because it seemed crazy to others. People were like, "Are you having a midlife crisis? Are you flighty? You seem all over the place." For me, I started out with charity work because it was what was familiar, and it helped me to have a sense of familiarity. I was familiar with the organization. They were global. This was something that I knew. I would have a reason to get out of bed that day, a reason to get dressed that day. And it sounds almost ungrateful because for so many, they look at this opportunity and they think that your life is a perpetual vacation.
mm,
And you're not vacationing and traveling abroad, you're living.
yeah,
And the same reason why people have to have a reason to get out of bed, no matter what city you live in. And I'm sure your city is great and full of great things that you can go do and explore. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're just doing TikToks all day long and on the exploration of your city all day long. And like, that's life. For those that's life, that's fine. But yeah, I think holistic finding purpose, whatever that definition is for you, it is critical that you sit down and think about what you're going to do. It could be as simple as, I'm going to write down 5 hobbies I'd like to pick up. I'm going to research them before I get to that country, before I get to that city. Try to find a Facebook group, an affinity group, somebody to connect with, just so that I have a sense of connection when I get there and a reason to step outside of the door.
yeah.
And that sounds simple, but it's not.
It's
It's
not.
not. It's not.
It's
No.
not. And as expat partners, especially, I feel like we need to be super resourceful and just
Yeah.
ready to reinvent ourselves and find new ways and, learn to deal with these setbacks that you described because there are a lot of opportunities. So I think
Yes.
expat life, it gives you a lot of obstacles, but it gives you a lot of opportunities. So you need to figure out, right, with this resourcefulness and this creativity and flexibility, how you can turn those obstacles into
Yeah.
opportunities, which is something that you've
Yes.
really done.
Yes, and I think it's so critical that you do that, because if not, you're constantly looking back
Yeah,
instead of looking forward. And if you get out of that space, if you prepare to flourish, then you will recognize that there actually are way more opportunities in front of you, that this opportunity gives you way more latitude, different platforms, different things that you can do with yourself, new opportunities. It's a constant newness, which can
yeah,
be exciting if you embrace it and understand that that is done with purpose also.
yeah,
And you're unapologetic about, again, I invested in a life coach to help me figure out my own personal mission. What was my personal brand? It sounds really simple to get to know yourself. It's not when you haven't taken the time or
yeah,
had the opportunity to take the time to do it in such an open format and authenticity, in the sense that there are no limits. So
right.
there's no societal limitations except for the ones that you put on yourself in terms of what you can and cannot do. Now there may be, work restrictions. Like here in Singapore, I'm on a dependent pass. I'm not sure if I can actually work here. So creating my own nonprofit out of the US and filming and having my own company in the US is different. But it was something that I thought through and planned for ahead of time, so that I wasn't stuck here thinking, oh my gosh, what can I do? And have all these obstacles, so that you don't allow yourself to hit the ground running when you're ready. But
Yeah,
there are so many more opportunities in front of you than the things that you think you're giving up. And I'm a big person on seasons. It's a season for everything right now. And people ask me all the time, are you going to go back to the traditional practice of law? Not right now. People ask me, will I take them on as clients all the time? No, I don't want. I'm not taking on clients. I'm not practicing law. And I had to get with a life coach and look at other people who were doing similar things. Just for lawyers example, my life coach told me to look at like Clive Davis, who is the CEO of Jive Records, who discovered Whitney Houston. Harvard attorney. I don't think he misses a day in the courtroom.
incredible.
Iyanla Van Zant, yeah, who does Fix My Life and all of these different shows with Oprah and these different platforms, and she's out giving all this great advice. She's a former New York prosecutor. I don't think she misses it at all. And I had to really make a list of all of these people who were lawyers who did other things, from Michelle Obama to Gandhi,
Yeah,
and giving
yeah,
myself
exactly.
permission. Yeah,
And I
to
think
from
that's such a great exercise now for all of the listeners who can relate to this, right? To do is just to really look for inspiring role models who have been through something similar, right? Whether that's a
yes,
previous career that you've had, or it's moving abroad, or it's something completely different. But any kind of struggle that you currently perceive, somebody has been through that and somebody has turned it around and has made something great out of it, right? So looking for these role models that can really inspire us.
yes, absolutely. And it's not too out of touch or far out of reach to look to the extreme. Some people may think, oh well, you can't compare your life to Michelle Obama's. Well, she had to walk away from her legal career too. She was
Absolutely.
in it.
We
She's
should look
almost
at
like
the extremes because it makes us think so much bigger and dream so much
yes,
bigger, right?
absolutely. And talk about the epitome of the accompanying spouse.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, um if you don't recognize that someone else has gone down that road, you may think that it is so unsurmountable and so unique that it's something that you have to reinvent a blueprint to, and you don't. You can use other people in other situations for inspiration, and it's okay to need guidance. And I tell people all the time, it's okay to invest in a life coach, in an
Oh, the
expat
best
life
investment. I
coach.
always say the best
It
investment you
is.
can do. Yeah, I
Yes.
think, like you said, right? It really starts by giving yourself permission, like you said, and also taking yourself and your desires and your needs so seriously and honor
Yes.
them so much that you're like, okay, I'm going to do something about this. And then
Yes.
look for someone that can help you. That could be a life coach, it could be someone else, but also, and I see this all the time, it's so important to have someone who keeps you accountable because,
Yes.
right, so many women start out with the best of intentions, with great aha moments, great clarity moments, but following through is a whole nother story. And you
Absolutely.
really need to have someone to hold you accountable. And that's why I think, again, right, looking for extremely inspiring people is
Yes.
helpful, because they make you think so much bigger and act so much bigger as well, right, to get there. So talking
Yeah.
about big actions and big dreaming and all of that, you
Mhm.
are Mrs. Universe. But not only
Yes.
that, you are Miss Universe for Singapore, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Well,
can
I
you tell
won.
us all about it?
I know. Well, I won for because in the Mrs. division, it is about residency. It is
Okay.
not really about nationality. They don't really look at that. They look at, well, where do you reside? And when they do a casting or when they do a local competition, they look at where you have residency. And technically, I am always going to be a US citizen. I don't have residency in the US. I don't own a home there. I do operate a business, so kind of, sort of. And I'm always, a US citizen. But residency wise, I don't own property. Um, this Singapore is home. So yeah, I went representing Singapore. I actually won for their country, but now I'm Mrs. Universe for everybody.
Yeah.
And it is, a title for married women, and it's with the Miss World Corp. Because I think there is one other one out there that's in Eastern Europe, and I'm not sure that they're licensed to be. But it's the Mrs. genre. I'm working on like this documentary called Beyond Beauty, just on the Mrs. genre pageants, because I started in pageants, I guess, when I was 30 in the Mrs. genre only. I've never done Miss, never did teen. I never had a desire. I just believe in pageantry with purpose. I think without it, it's kind of pointless. I never had a desire to do before, but I'd been invited to speak to a lot of girl groups when I was in the US as an attorney. And you have to be careful what you pray for, because I was like, God, how can I use this? Use me, God. How can I do this more often? And then God took me to the book of Esther, which is the first historical account of pageantry that we have, but it was with a purpose. She stood before the county with the other young ladies in the county and had a crown, and it was like the first Miss Persia pageant. Um, and so,
Oh,
you
fun.
know, it's
Yeah.
it's with a purpose. And I get to do a lot of work for Dress for Success, which is a global organization. I'm the founder for the London affiliate and the Chattanooga, Tennessee affiliate that is in my hometown. I'm also helping out Memphis, where I went to law school, their affiliate, Indianapolis, where I lived for several years, and Singapore also. So, it's a global women's organization that helps empower women. And one thing my life coach helped me to see is that everything that I do, everything that I had a desire to do, from pageantry to where I was volunteering to the books that I would write, everything, even the roles that I would initially took as an actress, everything that I did had an undertone of women's empowerment to it.
Yeah.
So it kind of made it all make sense, even though to some people, when you give yourself permission to be a multifaceted individual, it will look weird to some people, will look flighty. I remember I had this one woman, she accused me of being flighty. She was like, you're just all over the place. You want to start this nonprofit. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to give that much time? And she was like a stay-at-home wife. And she honestly could not understand why on earth would I want to work that hard. She was like, why? You just seem like you're just flighty. You're just all over the place. When actuality, I was very focused. I was very clear. It just seemed like a silly idea to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
It's
it
always
was it
something
was a
that
lot of work.
missed
Yeah.
in herself and then projected that, you're right, negatively onto
Onto me.
you.
Absolutely. And it was really because we weren't going to be able to go and have tea as often as we used to, and we
Yeah.
weren't going to be able to
Well
go and
connected.
go, or so she thought. But the reality is that I need to do more than have tea sometimes. I
Right.
want to live. That's just me. There is nothing wrong. And then there are times when I enjoy hashtag soft life, being a kid, because you sometimes you go on these corporate packages and it is a very comfortable existence. And I do what I want to do, which is a very blessed and fortunate position to be in. And that I'm doing what I truly feel like I'm called to do and have a purpose to do. It is a lot of work. And I've been ridiculed and made fun of. Like, why would you want to work that hard? I don't know how I could sleep at night and not fulfill the purpose that I know I'm capable of for this particular time. And it seems silly until you win. You know,
Yeah,
everybody thought I was silly for doing pageants until you become Mrs. Universe.
right.
Then it's not that silly anymore. Everybody
Exactly.
thinks it's,
And I
you
think
know, and you,
just to stress that point again, because it is so important. As women, we all need to be into women's empowerment because, right,
yes,
until the last woman is empowered, we're not empowered as a whole. So it's not
yes,
only about giving ourselves permission, which is vital. It's also about giving each other permission, not because the other person needs that, but because
right.
they don't need you to stand in their way and make them doubt
Get out of the
themselves,
way.
right?
Yes. Get out of the way. I think unless you're going to help either pave the way or help hold their hands and open the door along the way, then
That's
just get out
beautiful.
of the way.
Yeah,
Because people don't need your criticism, they don't need your projection, they don't need your opinions. If it looks as though it is strange, everybody's journey looks strange to
right.
somebody. I
Exactly.
think that's I think that's part of what you have to accept is that it's going to look strange to
Yeah.
somebody. It's going to look silly. You're going to look unqualified. You're going to look, I remember, and we deal with this in this season because initially when I was cast for the Miss World Corp, they do pageantry a bit differently, and I really like it in the sense that they if you don't have a local pageant, they will do a casting call, almost like a modeling call, where you compete with the women who are there, but it's a casting call. And I got casted initially for Taiwan because that's where I was living.
Ah,
And
that's
then the pandemic happened. Yeah, the pandemic happened, and I deferred 2 years because I wasn't ready. I think the first year, I think they deferred because of the pandemic, obviously. And then I didn't go in 2021 because we were in the middle of a move and I knew that I was moving. But the conversations that were had on the show, even amongst some of my friends who were local Taiwanese, was mixed. It was one thing was, of course you should. There's no big deal. Taiwan is a melting pot. And there were others that were just like, absolutely not. You cannot represent the beauty of Taiwan.
Are you serious? Okay, so
All dead
did you
serious.
have to take some cultural considerations before you actually went ahead with your pageantry?
Yeah, I mean, I think so because I mean those were the conversations that we had on the show, and that I understood it's a difference sometimes too. Every country is not the same,
Yeah,
and sometimes in certain countries, like it's like being British or Singaporean is more of a nationality, not necessarily a race of
yeah,
people, as opposed to being Taiwanese or Malaysian is an actual race of people.
yeah,
So those there are different considerations. Now, balance that with everybody has an NBA team, a basketball team, and they have foreign players on their team. I look at
right.
pageantry as a sport.
Exactly.
So it's a different conversation though, when the sport and a component of that sport is beauty.
Yeah,
And so it triggers different feelings in different people. So you have to be very assured of what it is that you're called to do. There will be different considerations that you have along the way. I will say that I am happy that I ended up representing Singapore because it really is a very diverse melting pot. It's kind of like representing the UK. It's a place, it's a nationality. It's not necessarily an entire race of people, which I was much more comfortable with. But I think the conversations around beauty, um, because that's what people really equate pageants to, and they don't realize that, just as much as swimsuit and evening gown, interview counts just as much.
yeah.
Intelligence actually wins the crown. It's not just about beauty, but for most people, that's the starting point. So
At
it was an
first
interesting
glance,
journey.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 episodes this season that really
Oh, I was gonna ask you if we'll
that.
see that on the
Oh,
new
yes.
season. Great.
They
Yeah,
allowed
I'm
me to
really looking
film it.
forward to it. Oh
Yeah,
my
it's
God.
it's just a very interesting journey. Very interesting journey.
Yeah. Wow, this conversation has been so amazing. And I feel like, it's packed with value. It's packed with even like practical tips that you guys can just take and adapt to your life right now. As a last question, I want to ask you, this show is all about expat women's empowerment, obviously, which you are also an advocate for. So,
Mhm.
what is your one tip that you would give expat women to feel and show up more empowered?
I think networking is critical. Finding your tribe, and your tribe doesn't necessarily always mean social. It means professional.
Yeah.
And finding your various tribes. You may have 3 different tribes. I have my mom tribe, I have my professional tribe, I have my social tribes. And I think taking full advantage of all of the affinity groups that are out there now. There are so many. For every country that you're in, there are like 10 Facebook groups that are out there. And not everybody that you meet in those groups are going to have value add to you, but many of them will. And so I think it's important, depending on what it is that you want to do, take the time to close your eyes and think about, what does a flourishing season in my life in this space look like? And what am I going to do every day to pour into myself? Look at yourself as an entity. What did I do for Juanita Incorporated today? Whether that's just taking up crocheting, or going to a new museum, or getting on the hop on, hop off bus. But what did you do for yourself? Even if it's just sitting still, but
Yeah.
taking the time before you get to that place in that season to sit down and think about it, and then checking in every week that you did something for you Incorporated to
Yeah.
help you along that journey, and
And
really
accountability.
leveraging, the accountability factor, and really
Yeah.
leveraging different WhatsApp groups, Facebook
Yeah.
groups. There are even, IG platforms, but really the Facebook groups. There's so many people that are looking for the same thing. They have the same interest, small business owners, entrepreneurs globally, everything from travel agents to real estate investment clubs. There is something out there for you to glean and learn from. And you just have to be bold enough, but understand that you are enough and you are okay. And your definition, your journey doesn't have to look like anybody else's.
Exactly. And to tie this
Yeah.
back to what you said about networking, also, I think a good question is, who can help me, right? On this
Yes.
path. You are not alone. There are people out there that
Yes.
in different capacities, they can really help and support you.
Yes. And
So,
invest in the help. My life coach that I invested in changed my life. I mean, it was the start of the pivot, and then I just pivot and shot off. Like, I just took it. It totally gave me a mission statement and brought everything again. That underlying theme of empowering women is, it's replete in everything that I do, every choice that I made. So when it seemed flighty to other people, it made perfect sense that I would become a founder of Dress for Success in London. Of course, that's what I should do.
yeah,
That's where the 3A alliteration of attorney, author, actress came from. It has to make sense to you first,
mm,
and then everybody will catch wind. If they don't, by the time it makes sense to you, you won't care.
exactly. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Also, we all need to care a little less about what other people think and say, because they don't
yeah,
know better, right?
they
They don't.
don't. And
Yeah.
they don't know what's best for you. Only you know what's best for you. And when you find it, you'll have such peace. It won't matter. I
Yeah.
think the best thing you can do, there are so many expat coaches out here that help women through the journey. Give yourself permission and invest in it. Even if it's just 3 sessions, to give yourself an
I'm not paying
idea.
her to do marketing here, right?
No, I'm honestly, this is what I've been an expat for 11 years. This was like 11 years ago, probably before you even started doing this, but it's true that was a thing. I'm not even sure if you knew that was a thing that like helped me to catapult to this place, but
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
She wasn't even an expat specific life coach. She was just a life coach, like find your personal brand, your personal purpose. Because back then, even expat coaching, I don't think was a big thing. This is a decade ago, like over a
Yeah.
decade ago. I don't even think it was such a big thing now. Now I'm finding more and more coaches. The more I do in this space, the more I go and speak, having the show.
There is
There
a
are
lot
so
of
many people.
demand, and there is a
Yeah.
lot of help that we can provide, and it really does make
Yeah.
a difference. I see that after every session, basically, it makes such a big
Mhm.
difference, and it can
It
really
does.
help you forward. So,
Yes.
Juanita, thank you so much for everything you shared, all of your wisdom and your great energy that you bring to the show here. Now, last but not least, where can people, stay in touch with you, follow you, support you and your show, which is also
Yes.
important, right? Because
Yes.
women, as we
Please.
said, we need to support each other. So
Yes.
let us know
Well,
how.
and the proceeds from the streaming will go to Dress for Success. So the more you stream, the better. The
better.
more you support, the more 5 stars we get, the better, because we are a nonprofit production company. So streaming proceeds go to help. You can find me at I am Juanita Ingram. And that's on Instagram, Facebook. My website is iamjuanitaingram.com. The show is the Expats with an S show on Instagram. And you can look up the Expats International Ingrams on Amazon, on the US and UK. And then hopefully within the next 4 months or so, we'll be launching, again, season 1 is still on purposestreaming.com, which is our production company is Purpose Streaming. So you can go and still stream season 1 and catch up.
Exactly.
And then by the time you do that, then season 2 will be on that platform. We've got an exclusive period right now with Amazon and some other platforms that are coming out there soon.
That's
but we've got
incredible.
Yeah, I'm just excited about it, and please support. And I think also we're trying to reshape how reality TV sort of handles various groups in various settings. And I think that there's a niche for smart reality TV, family friendly. There's no fighting, there's no cursing on our show. It's very family friendly, but very honest and very authentic, very funny, but just normalizing us in these international spaces and having fun and learning a lot. So, yeah.
So ladies, please tune in. You're going to love the show. I cannot wait to watch it. So Amazon, US and UK right now. And then Juanita will let us know when it's streamed worldwide. Yes. And I'll be right there streaming a lot.
Thank you. There are 20 episodes in season 1 that you can go and check out now. Yeah, on Purpose Streaming, purposestreaming.com. Yeah, on season 1, there's 20 episodes, and then there are 13 new episodes in season 2 that are an hour long. So it's actually more content that's forthcoming, but we're excited about it. Follow us on social media. You'll be able to see clips of the new season, which are really funny because my kids are on it. Other children are on the show as well. And so it's just a really good time to see.
I feel like this is just what we needed in the expat world, right? A show about this kind of lifestyle. So thank you so much for bringing this to life. You have done amazing things. Congratulations again, Juanita. I'm always here to support you. And
thank you.
Yes, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for creating this space. And thank you for the work that you do to empower like us. She has not paid me. I'm not a client of hers, but I'm not, but I probably should have been or could have been. And I am a huge proponent of it, of making that investment in your own success. So thank you for all that you do.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Juanita, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.